Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chain Reaction. In this episode, we meet Temujin Louie. Temujin is the CEO of Wanchain, and Wanchain is basically a bridge building protocol which facilitates the flow of assets between blockchains. Now, if you like this content or the content of any of the show that is on the Media Report channel, please do subscribe because it really helps the algorithm. So, if you're ready for an interesting conversation with Temujin, then let's go. So, hey Temujin, welcome to the Chain Reaction.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nice, thank you for accepting the invite. So, the first question is: was there life before blockchain?
Sometimes it feels like there wasn't, but I guess like all of us, of course, there was. I got into blockchain, I think, in a similar way to a lot of people via Bitcoin. Is when I was a grad student. This was back in 2012, 2013. Just kind of a lost student trying to write my thesis, and then just kind of stumbled upon Bitcoin, and a lot of things just started clicking into place, and really got into it. But of course, back then I really felt like I understood a lot, but in hindsight, I understood absolutely nothing. And I didn't really get into blockchain full time as a career until around 2017 or so. And then since then, I've just been blockchain full time, nonstop.
I kind of share the feeling. I mean, we also discovered Bitcoin in 2017, and I think it probably took the best of maybe like a whole year to really get my head around the concept, and then what it all meant and what it was all about. So anyway, we had to talk about Wanchain. What are you in Wanchain? What is your function in Wanchain?
Sure. I'm the CEO of Wanchain. Wanchain itself is a blockchain interoperability project.
Right. Which, if I read correctly, also started in 2017, right? So what was let's say, what was when you talk about a project, like you kind of define it in vision and mission. So what was the vision, and then what is the mission? Like what is it you guys want to achieve, and how do you go about it?
Sure. Yeah. I think from the start, Wanchain, we pretty early on, or, really from the genesis, at that point, Ethereum was already around, Bitcoin was around. Obviously, there was a few other chains as well. But at that point, with just those two, it was like, okay, well, the whole thing can't run on a single chain. So there's going to be multiple chains. So, when you're talking about vision and mission, we kind of are building towards kind of like a wide area network of blockchains where there's seamless interoperability between them. They can kind of operate as one kind of meta network. To make that happen, we obviously need some core infrastructure. This is what Wanchain builds, as well as some industry standards. So we contribute to that a lot as well. And kind of in more tangible terms, what that means in terms of what people can see and what they can interact with is that we connect just a wide variety of blockchains. Today we connect about 40 different chains, both EVMs, non-EVMs. Most of your audience probably has heard of us from our bridges to Cardano.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, well, let's just go back in time for 1 second, because I remember, like I said, I also joined the crypto, the blockchain world space in 2017, and already then I remember reading about Wanchain, or at least I saw the name. But I mean, now we're in 2025, 8 years have passed. It is just one of those things that you tend to take for granted. Like, yeah, there's Wanchain, but what actually is it? What does it do? So first question I would have about that is it, are you an L1? Are you a layer one, or is it built on top of Ethereum, or?
So what Wanchain is essentially we build bridges. So bridges between different blockchains. So this can be Cardano, Ethereum, Bitcoin. We focus a lot on non-EVMs. There is a Wanchain L1 blockchain, standalone L1 as well, which plays into quite a few of our kind of forward-facing products. But it is not an intermediary chain. I don't know how deep we want to get into it. Some interoperability protocols just funnel everything through a middle chain and do everything there. That's not how Wanchain works. So our bridges are so-called direct. So if you're doing Cardano Bitcoin or Cardano Solana, those are the only two chains involved. But there is, in kind of on the product level, sometimes it's useful to have access to a fast, cheap chain, which is what the Wanchain L1 is for.
Right. To answer your question, or your comment rather, I do not want to get into it too deeply. I'm not a technical analyst. So the purpose of this show is more like to introduce people to projects and see what news you guys might have, right? So
in that case,
I mean,
your audience should leave and just understand what Wanchain is blockchain interoperability, cross-chain bridge.
Sure. And thanks for the interview. All right, cool. Well, I mean, let's just do on the surface. Maybe you can explain a couple of things. I was reading on the website Wanchain nodes, node operators, delegators, and like you already mentioned, the EVM compatible. So maybe at least comment on that. Like, what's the story with that?
Yeah, so Wanchain in our ecosystem, there's two types of nodes. One are the nodes for the bridge itself. It's a decentralized permissionless system, meaning anyone can go and deploy a node. Similarly, not too dissimilar to how the stake pool operators function on Cardano. If you don't want to kind of handle all the hardware and all this, monitoring that goes involved with running a node, you can also just delegate your WAN coins to someone else's node. And so there's two options to our users. One is to secure the bridge, and one is to secure the layer 1 blockchain.
Since when is this possible? Because I know that there was the whole thing about how Cardano developed a certain staking model, and then Ethereum actually then went back and kind of implemented that as well. So has there always been staking on Wanchain, or is it something like a recent development, or was it from the get-go?
Yeah, from the get-go, there's been staking. The chains, Cardano is quite different in terms of its infrastructure, so it has totally liquid staking. Wanchain's is much more similar to Ethereum's. It's a POS chain, and so you stake into POS nodes. When you do stake, your assets become kind of locked in that node until you remove them, which is different, than how Cardano has their staking set up.
Right. I mean, do you have any personal preference for one model versus the other, or is it all the same to you? Or do you think maybe from a user perspective, is one more friendly in one certain sense? Do they have advantages or disadvantages? Or
yeah, at this stage, I think I probably prefer the Cardano liquid staking model. But at that point, we're talking already about pretty intricate details of how things work. If you're looking at mainstream adoption, I don't think the difference is all that significant in terms of people using it. They both work. If I had to pick one, I'll pick the native liquid staking that Cardano offers, because I think that's quite cool.
It's also kind of normal, because over time, I mean, that's the whole point of innovation, right? That existing models keep being improved and altered, and that's cool. So anyway, you guys are bridge builders, which is also metaphorically really a cool concept. And there are 3 bridge types from what I read on the website. You have token bridge, X-Flows bridge, and NFT bridge. Maybe again, just superficially touch on each of those.
Sure, yeah. So the token bridge, this one is kind of what most people would be used to, I guess. If you want to bridge USDC or USDT or Bitcoin into Cardano, for example, then that's the bridge you'll go to. It's bridge.wanchain.org. Basically, what will happen is that these decentralized bridge nodes will lock, or the user will lock their assets into a smart contract on the source chain, and then these nodes will trigger the smart contract on Cardano and mint a wrapped asset, a wrapped representation, so that this value can kind of be flowing through on Cardano. This is kind of the most standard bridge. It uses that kind of lock and mint mechanism. We also have a canonical bridge. We call it X-Flows. So this one's native to native. So this is really useful for chains where the native version of the asset exists on multiple chains. So this is your USDCs, your USDTs, even your ETHs between Ethereum and all the L2s. So this way you use the Wanchain bridge and you're not getting anything wrapped. You just have the native version on one end, you lock it in a smart contract, and you get the native version on another end. Export is kind of the newest member of the team. And so this one is more kind of moving arbitrary data messages from chain to chain, not specific kind of value assets, just bits of data. The advantage of this is that the smart contracts and the dApp developers who are building using export, they can just build applications that will get triggered when a specific piece of data is kind of delivered to that smart contract. So this way you can deliver the data from Ethereum, trigger an action on Cardano, for example, and then anything that happens on Cardano just works like Cardano. So it allows you, or developers, really to create something that looks a lot more like a true cross-chain application, an application that lives actually on multiple chains and not just is copy pasted as a lot of those multi-chain apps exist like today.
Right. So with your existing models, you're really facilitating to any type of scenario. I just have a question because recently there's been, especially in the Cardano ecosystem, maybe also in Bitcoin, there's been a lot of talk and announcement about the revolutionary approach, let's say, of what has been done on Bitcoin, which finally they're able to do zero knowledge proof, which allows them to connect with, finally make Bitcoin see and talk with other blockchains. So is this fundamentally different from what you guys are doing, or revolutionary in any way? Or because everybody likes to blow their own horn, right? So
yes. I mean, I think a lot of that, obviously I was paying attention to it. The hype is a little overblown. But that being said, zero knowledge proofs are going to be part of the long-term solution for interoperability. Projects like Wanchain, and not only us, really kind of anyone who's serious in the interoperability space, at least keeps an eye on ZKPs. ZKPs have been around for a long time, but there's trade-offs. Like with any solution, it's not, sometimes it gets presented, especially with the most recent hoopla with Bitcoin OS. It's just kind of like, oh, just everything's just going to work out of the box. This seamless, bridgeless interoperability, like all of that.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was getting to, right? So bridges. So
all of that is not the case. Even with ZKPs, you have to be stretching the definitions pretty far to argue that that's not a bridge. It's just a bridge that relies on zero knowledge proofs, and there's major advantages to that. And like I said, ZKP is more than likely going to be part of the long-term solution for interoperability. But like I said, huge trade-offs in terms of usability, and that's kind of really the reason why it hasn't taken over so far. That's why bridges today aren't just all running on ZKP, because most people are not going to want to wait multiple days for their bridges for their transactions to complete. It's just too big a trade-off. And there's other issues as well, but definitely an incremental advancement and something worth keeping an eye on. But just for all the people out there, when things are that hyped and you're throwing around, keywords like zero knowledge and bridgeless, those are big red flags to just kind of take a pause, make sure you actually understand what is happening behind the scenes, and then you can kind of make an assessment on how secure it is and how reliable it is, and all of that. Just be careful. We've all seen the risks that happen with bridges, and this is really the kind of primary contributor to these types of exploits, is that when the hype gets too fast, that means that users don't understand what they're interacting with, which means that they don't understand the risk profile of the thing they're interacting with, and then they get caught.
Sure. I mean, you guys are connected with maybe like now over 40 other blockchains. I was just wondering how many people have ever used Wanchain, or how many current users are there? Because the numbers must be huge, right? So
yeah, quite large. Lifetime, certainly in the hundreds of thousands. Kind of the active monthly users, in the tens of thousands. We've done a fair amount of value transfers, so we've done well over $1 billion in cross-chain transfers, and those numbers are growing every day. The bridge is running at an all-time high right now, so everyone is in a pretty good mood in our community, and we're continuing to add new chains. We have we do special focus on non-EVMs. Integrating EVMs at this point is pretty straightforward, but part of our own kind of vision is that it would be kind of a shame if, when we do get to kind of mainstream adoption of blockchain technology, if it was only EVM, that's not what it's not the original vision. So we put a lot of effort into bridging to non-EVMs, and that's why we're basically the only decentralized bridge that's servicing Cardano right now.
And that's exactly, and that brings us to Cardano. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that I thought maybe it would be cool to speak to you guys is because I saw a tweet about a certain initiative which has to do with Midnight and Cardano, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about that, what's happening in that sense.
Sure. Now that I like to think that we have kind of become part of the Cardano community. We've been here for quite some time now. I think we've really started proving our worth, so to speak. And obviously, you all know, who's listening, there's this partner chain framework that's starting to be developed, and that first partner chain is Midnight. So, again, there's a lot of I think misconceptions about what partner chains are and what the framework is, and also it's in development, so it's totally understandable why some things might be unclear. But basically, although partner chains do have some observability, we could say, in terms of themselves, between themselves and the other chains in the framework. It doesn't like have a token bridge out of the box or something like that. You know, like, so Midnight can't just bridge ADA from Cardano to itself without a third-party bridge being built. So, you know, that's something that we're investigating, building the infrastructure to make these kind of use cases possible. Because I think, at least our guess anyways, is that there will be a lot of overlap and interest between the Cardano communities and the eventual Midnight community, especially as the first partner chain. So it'd be a little weird, you know, if ADA was locked over here and could never go to Midnight, vice versa. I know Midnight is minting one asset on Cardano mainnet specifically. Similarly, it'd be a little weird if you can't take that asset and bridge it back to Midnight. So, you know, I think interoperability at its core is really about data between different chains. But I think end users think about interoperability more in terms of moving tokens between chains, which is, although a product level thing, it's kind of an expectation that that people have. So we're trying to, or considering, you know, looking at how to do that. Again, the chains themselves are quite different. You know, Midnight is based on Substrate, which is more like Polkadot. Cardano is Cardano. So it's not going to be an easy bridge. So it's something we're investigating for sure. It's also kind of something that we ourselves are looking at doing a kind of zero knowledge proof implementation. Midnight itself has some advantages for zero knowledge proof verification. That's part of their core design. So for us, it makes sense to at least explore it. Like I said, we do think that zero knowledge proofs are going to be part of the long-term answer. So that'll be kind of the first thing that we'll investigate.
Amazing. I mean, you guys are really the team that makes things flow, right? Whether it's data or tokens. And yeah, it's awesome. Call Wanchain to get everything moving. That's really great. But it's not only Cardano, of course. I mean, you guys are developing on all around. You have so many teams. I was also reading about two exciting like bits of news. One that I think you can only share starting from tomorrow. But maybe since this is being broadcast no sooner than tomorrow, maybe you can still share it with us. And the other one regards the Sui network, right? So maybe you just want to do announce your last bits of news to those communities.
Yeah, sure. So the Sui CCTP integration, this actually was announced just a few hours before this this recording, so you can all go see it in public now. So CCTP, I think a lot of you guys might have heard of it. This is kind of Circle USDC's kind of built-in cross-chain component. And so it's still, you know, it requires, you know, basically third-party bridges to integrate their tech so that you can move USDC from chain to chain. So Wanchain has been a long supporter of Circle and CCTP. We've been launch partners with them basically since, well, actually not basically, from the first time CCTP ever was launched on its first chains. And so this continues now with Sui. So that means you can move CCTP using, you know, the Wanchain bridge to like dozen other chains, Sui to Solana, Sui to Ethereum, Sui to Polygon, what have you, all the chains that support CCTP. On the Cardano side, we have been recently kind of connecting it to Solana. So there's been routes for USDC from Solana to Cardano, as well as USDT from Solana to Cardano. So really kind of increasing the different options to kind of make it as easy as possible for liquidity and new users, frankly, to come into the Cardano ecosystem. You know, we kind of think that, you know, Cardano's tech has always been really, really good and has a super passionate community. And they're really kind of poised in this upcoming 2025, 2026 to really have a huge influx of new users now that everything is basically ready, you know, to build these kind of amazing applications. So we're making as many roads as possible to help kind of the decentralized flow of users and assets into Cardano. So that means those two routes I just mentioned, but a lot of other things too, you know, new ETH routes, new BTC routes. Very soon, I think maybe this is what you're alluding to, but we will also be bringing in PYUSD to Cardano. So this is the PayPal stablecoin. And some of you might have seen a pretty nifty video by Ripple just now with RUSD. So we'll also be looking into bringing RUSD into the Cardano as well. And basically just kind of continue what we've been doing on that front, you know, make it as easy as possible for users to come into the ecosystem with these kind of so-called blue chip assets.
Is there in another maybe in another metaphor? I mean, you guys build the bridges. Metaphorically, maybe you can say that all these blockchains represent cities, and you're the guys that are building the highways. You know, in a
Yeah,
way to
that's a good way to put it as well.
facilitate all the traffic.
Yeah.
Temujin, already getting to the end of this interview. I mean, thank you very much for coming on. It's a great honor and pleasure and privilege. Is there anything that maybe you would like to tell all of your communities, since you supply like 40 of them with your technology? So
Yeah, I'll focus on Cardano, but it's applicable to
sure.
everyone. We spend a lot of time right now just talking about major assets, USDT, USDC. We also, it's important for us anyways to also support smaller projects who are looking to kind of be multi-chain or just have more of an interoperable bent. So we always encourage anyone, you can just really reach out to us directly if you have a request, if there's a specific asset that you want, or if there's a specific chain, whether we can service that with kind of our in-house bridge.wanchain.org or with export. This is always stuff that we are looking to kind of expand our footprint, and not only to the big ones. We do want to support smaller chains who have maybe been historically ignored, because we do think that interoperability is for everyone. So just reach out. We're easy to talk to, and that'll be my parting message.
It's almost like a happy New Year, like a New Year's wish, right, for everybody
That's right.
to integrate and collaborate. Awesome. Temujin, thank you very much, and all the best with Wanchain, and keep building those bridges.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.